because Kaitlyn, once again, always committed. What's up everyone, it's Epictastic Joshua here, aka Joshua here. Welcome back to my channel. This is going to be my thoughts on the latest Hulu supernatural sci-fi horror action film. Of course, No One Will Save You. This was written, directed, and produced by Brian Duffield and stars the lovely Kaitlyn Dever of Booksmart fame, who is one of the best actresses working today and definitely one of the more underrated talents right now, who also executive produces this movie. In No One Will Save You, we follow an exile, anxiety-ridden homebody named Brynn as she finds solace within the walls of the home where she grew up in, where she's awakened one night by strange noises from unearthly intruders. So the aliens has found a way into her home, into her hometown, and so she has to battle this alien and fight for survival. I was really interested into this because even now, we only got one trailer for this movie, and I was interested when it comes to this. I very much love the alien sci-fi movies, but it felt like Brian Duffield was going to take a unique spin on this. Brian Duffield has been a part of the directing game with stuff like Underwater and The Babysitter, and also Love and Monsters and Spartanius. He has been around for quite a while. He was also one of the writers of the Divergent series Insurgents. So with him in the writer and director's chair, and also with Kaitlyn Dever producing this and also starring in it, I wanted to see what the fuss was about, and I wanted to give this movie a chance because it looked pretty interesting. A mix of A Nightmare on Elm Street, Quiet Place, and Signs, and a little bit of Nope, except this is a silent film. And having seen this, I can definitely say this was genuinely one of my favorite movies of 2023. I thought this had a lot going for it here. Starting off with the pros of this movie is that Brian Duffield's writing and direction here. This is a movie that has little to no dialogue, and while that is an issue with me, I will say it does take use of this vintage premise, and Phil does a good job at pretty much putting you in this isolated viewpoint of Brynn, who she is living in her childhood home. She's lost her boyfriend. She's coping through the loss of making model homes. She's also lost family members. She is basically bullied and negated by a lot of people in her city, and she's basically seen as a loner. So for much of her movie, you're in her shoes, what it's like to live alone and be alone in this horrible crisis. But at the same time, she's also having to deal with aliens in her town, and she has to find a way to stay alive and also fight off these aliens. So his direction and writing, you could have easily made this complicated, but this is only an hour and 23 minutes or 24 minutes if you count the end credits, which is 93 minutes worth of just a simple little premise with one person alone. And the movie does hinders on this one person, so if you don't have that power of the character, the movie will. There is some very good camera work and very good stunning cinematography and extreme moments of tension and atmosphere. There are moments in this, despite this being a PG-13 rating, where the violent content and the terror and the alien stuff definitely goes into it, and it definitely knows what is going on in terms of its premise and in terms of the story, and the movie continues straight focus of it. It never really loses sight of what it's set out to do, and the cinematography work is well done. There's some brilliant camera work here. There's so many camera shots where you're following Kaitlyn on this fight to survive, where it's like, is she gonna make it, is she gonna not, and you root for her wanting to get out of the situation, because again, this is a movie with very little dialogue, so it does have to rely on your lead being active here. So, and the moments of atmosphere looks really good. Also, for the $22 million budget, the alien effects looks very good. And I'm surprised that this did not look like an asylum movie, because usually when you go low budget, sometimes it can become a bit of a thing where it looks like an asylum movie, or it looks cheap as hell. $22 million here is well spent, and it doesn't feel like an asylum movie, so I definitely appreciate that. Getting this movie is top really good here for the pace that it's going to. It could have used a little bit more moments of some backstory when it comes to Brynn, but overall it really does know exactly where you get into this movie. Score by Joseph Trapanese is also really haunting, really intense, and it really gets under your skin. It's one of those movie scores that's going to get you under your skin, and it's definitely one of the more fun ones of 2023 to listen to. Also, the sound design and sound mixing here is well done as well. Some great sound mixing on the aliens and the alien invasion stuff, and even with the sounds around her, definitely goes into it, what you're getting to. The main thing that is holding this movie together, of course, is Kaitlyn Dever. Again, I've praised her in Booksmart. I've done nothing but praise her whenever I see her, even with some older stuff. Kaitlyn Dever is a fantastic actress, and like I said, she should be getting her own franchise at this point. I don't know if she doesn't want to do it right now, or she just is enjoying doing smaller stuff like this. But whichever one, that's good. That's good for you. She also is in another movie called Next Goal Wins, so I might probably check that out, even though it's like a Waititi. But everything I've seen of her, Short Term 12, All Summer's In, Detroit, Booksmart, Beautiful Boy, Ticket to Paradise, Dear Evan Hansen, Rosalind, she is going places. And if someone would just give this girl that one franchise or one character that she could play in, whether it's DC, Star Wars, Marvel, or Mario, or one of the other Nintendo properties, or something like a Sega property or something, she could really bring it home. She could really be even more loved than she is right now. And with Kaitlyn Dever being great in here, she doesn't have a lot of dialogue. Kaitlyn has to convey a lot of different emotions. She has to contribute fear, sadness, terrified, horrified, wanting to fight against these aliens to protect her home. And I think she does that very well into the movie, and she does a great job with that material, and she's fantastic here once again, as always. As I said, give Kaitlyn her own franchise or a character that she could play with. I don't care what franchise, just give it to her. She earns it at this point. Right, give her an Academy Award winning role one day.
Yes, definitely.
Great.
Absolutely. I think it's signed, sealed, and delivered, honey.
Yeah.
I love you in every universe.
Try to keep up.
I only have two issues when it comes to this movie. One of them is a small one of them is a big one. I'll do the big one first, and that is I would have liked to have had a couple moments of flashbacks, maybe some dialogue as to what was it all that transpired in Brynn's life to make her feel so secluded and make her feel so hated on. And a little bit of dialogue with Kaitlyn every now and then, just to keep her from not being so devoid of being without dialogue. She's great without the dialogue, but when you see Kaitlyn Dever and acting anything else, I'm so used to her speaking dialogue and such. And the small issue is that the third act does get pretty damn weird. I appreciate the fact that it's willing to go there and try something new, but it does go in a little bit of a weird direction. That's all I'm saying. My final thoughts, No One Will Save You. This is a pretty surprising sci-fi alien invasion thriller that it worked for my standards. With the small issues aside, I think this is a well-directed, very anxiety-filled, very tension-filled thriller with some great performances, with some great cinematography. Kaitlyn Dever is committed to the role. Brian Duffield does direct this movie, And I think this is one of those movies, besides Rosaline and besides The Princess last year, and besides Prey definitely, that should have been released in theaters. It would have been at least a decent sized hit for theaters. But I'm so hopeful that they will give this a physical media release eventually, along with Rosaline and with The Princess.
What are you doing? Give us a physical media release of those movies.
In the end, I'm gonna walk away and I will give No One Will Save You an Epictastic. It's not my favorite movie of the year. It doesn't touch Across the Spider-Verse, but this would be on that best of the year. I have until December to figure it out, and we still have a few movies left that I want to see personally. Well, that's gonna do it for the video that you just watched. If you want to see more, my channel icon is up here. If you want to see more content from me, all my social medias are right here in this end card. I will also leave a playlist and a video here for you to see what the channel is about. As always, acknowledge me, stay Epictastic, join the Epictasticness, and you guys keep it cool.